right, welcome back, everyone, to 1 Minute Recess, where we dive into the news, politics, and off the record moments shaping Nevada politics and beyond. My name is Annette Magnus.
And I'm Mayte, short for Mayte and Annette. Together, as we do every week, we'll explore what really happens during those 1 minute recesses, both on the floor and off in Nevada and around. From political drama to cultural chaos, we're here to ask what the fuck is going on. So let's get into it.
Recess rundown. We're ready to go. So, this is your cheat sheet to all the drama and decision making right here in Carson City. Lots of stuff going on. Last week was a deadline week, lots of drama happening around deadline week. Lots of good bills that died, lots of bills that died and now are alive again, which can happen during legislative session. And lots of bills moving now, lots of interesting bills that we'll get to in a second. So, last week was a deadline week on Friday. There's another deadline for first house passage on April 22nd. So there's going to be a lot of bills that have to make it through the process over the next week or so. So let's get into it, Maria. What are you watching?
Yeah, so it's funny. Today I had to go to a doctor's appointment and they were talking about Reba's law, actually, which we were talking about earlier. So I was like, oh, I should ask Annette about that and how that's going. Because we had Rebecca Goff on last week who talked about it, and I didn't know that was a thing. I had heard about the story of Reba. And the reason why it was in the news is because in Vegas, there were some neighbors that saw someone throw their dog in a dumpster.
Yes,
And
yes.
so I was like, wow.
As you know, Nevada has horrible laws when it comes to animals and protecting animals from abuse. Our laws basically see all animals as livestock, even dogs, cats, pets, livestock. And not that livestock shouldn't be treated well, too. I think all animals should be treated well. But this one was particularly bad in Reba's case because that was a bulldog that was put in that tote and she was abused beforehand, and then she ended up dying because of the heat and all of the trauma and abuse that she was subjected to. Rebecca is working on this with Republican Melissa Hardy. It's a really good bill, something that even my own father was watching. I think Reba kind of captured the hearts of a lot of people across Nevada because the story is so tragic. And so that was a bill that just personally, not in my professional capacity, that I was watching very closely as well. You know, Rebecca was following up on it. I know Assembly Member Hardy was following up on it. She was doing a lot of work around this. And sadly, last week on the deadline, even though I had heard that there was a deal cut between the DAs and the public defenders, the bill died. The bill did not get a work session in the Judiciary Committee in the Assembly. And it died, and everybody was very upset by that. Especially the animal community was very upset by that, even though there was a deal that had been struck that we were hearing around the building. Magically, on Monday, the bill was re-alive. It's crazy how that happens, Maria. And I have a lot of thoughts and feelings about this matter because I think that the bill was unfairly targeted because it's being run by a Republican. The chair of the committee and the speaker and various other folks have said that the bill didn't get a work session because there were amendments being made. But we both know how deadlines work. The amendments are made before the deadlines.
Exactly.
So I think you all can read between the lines on my face of, sure, they were making amendments. Sure. That's what happened.
We know how Carson City works, especially if, you make it happen or you provide some kind of exemption if there really are like things like that. Literally, you can do whatever you want.
The bill doesn't die on a deadline.
Yeah.
So the bill died. There was a huge uproar over the weekend. People were furious. Even my dad texted me. He's like, Annette, what the hell's going on with this bill? This is common sense. Everybody should support this. Right? Magically, it was live again on Monday, Maria. The mysteries of the NV Ledge.
And for those that may be thinking, is it
Maria,
because,
say the things I can't.
from an outsider looking in, and after you said, after we talked about with Rebecca who the sponsor is, I was like, I hope nobody screws this up just because it's a Republican as the main sponsor. Because we know
good bills too, and they deserve things, and they deserve to go through the process.
Yeah, and we know, this just, I was only there for like 2 days up there last week, 2 working days in the city of Carson, But after how many 8 years of like going up there back and forth and learning the inner workings, especially around deadlines and endgame, usually what happens is someone is mad at someone, or someone doesn't like someone or other, and
Same.
therefore they're gonna hold a bill hostage or just kill it because of ego, because of hatred, because they didn't give me what I wanted on something else. So I'm gonna take something that might be good and just ruin it for everyone. That's what it seems like to me. And it's bullshit.
Here's what I know. I don't think our friends in the Dems anticipated just how angry the community was going to be
It's a dog.
about a bill on animal abuse. And somebody made the excuse to me, well, our child laws are not any better than this. Well, then fix the child laws. Fix the
Fix those too.
child laws too.
Chop,
You
chop.
can have better laws on animal abuse and better laws on child abuse. You can do both things. You're the legislature. You can do both
You can do
things.
it. Get to work. Yeah.
So if now this bill makes child abuse laws in the state look bad, well then make those better too. I don't know. Like, you're the legislature. You make laws. That's the whole reason you're here.
Hey, our education system sucks too. Work on it. Everything sucks in Nevada. Work on it.
I told you, and you felt it last week. The vibe in the building this session is so strange. I've been talking about it with other legislators, but also other lobbyists. It's just a really weird vibe this session. Nobody knows what's going on because of the feds, because of the budget. But then there's this nonsense that slips through, right? And listen, I think personally, this is Annette Magnus's personal opinion, I don't think they anticipated how much support existed for this bill. And I think somebody in leadership, not saying who, thought they could get away with killing this bill and underestimated the outrage that was going to take place when they killed it. And then they saw the entire community be like, this is a common sense bill. What are you doing? And then suddenly Monday rolls around, and now the bill is back alive, and the chair and the vice chair and the speaker are all like, oh, no, I promise we were working on the bill. Sure, I'll take their word for that. Yep. And if I'm checking my phone, it's because fuckery is still afoot over there. On different bills, not on
I was gonna say, live update us. That really does sound like fun fuckery. I don't work at the legislature anymore, and I'm speaking as a citizen of Nevada, and that sounds like a total fuckery, and also a disconnectedness with people. I mean, the news had this on today, and they didn't even have to like explain who Reba was. That's how you know it's something that everybody knows, when they were just like, this happened and it reminds us of Reba. Oh, and by the way, there's Reba's law. How disconnected are you? It really shows that Carson really is a bubble. It's like summer camp that people go to, and it's just the bickering back and forth.
Yeah. So that encapsulates deadline day for me. And there were bills that I was working on last week that died, and I'm a little perturbed about it. I'm not gonna lie, because I think some of the norms, I think some of the things that you and I have become accustomed to in that building, of like just the decorum of how things are supposed to work, like a chair telling you the truth when they're gonna kill a bill and why they're gonna kill a bill. Those are just norms that I don't know, that I think should be norms in the building. I think, being told the truth by a politician that real people elect should be the norm. I think that chairs offering a reason, not just they don't like the bill and that they have the power, but offering an actual reason why a bill isn't going to get a work session. There's also this thing where now suddenly you have to have the votes to get a work session. That's never happened before.
It's not how it works. We've seen bills fail.
All right, well, if it fails, it fails, right? Like, we're gonna put it to the test. Did the lobbyists do their job? Me do my job,
Right.
Put the bill to the test. If I've got the votes, put it up for a fucking vote. Not this litmus test, does the chair like it or not? Like, that has never been the case.
So it sounds like now the chair is the king and the queen of the committee.
So actually, that's not true either, because now what I've heard in the building through the grapevine is that the majority in the assembly, now this is not the Senate I'm talking about, I'm purely talking about the assembly right now. What I have been told, and this is based off of the lottery bill, is that a lot of these chairs don't even have the ability anymore to be able to determine what comes up for a work session. That
Mm-hmm.
is all now housed with the leadership. And that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But like why don't you trust your chairs to make these decisions? And also, why are the chairs not trained to put bills up and let them have a vote, even if they don't agree with them? Again, this is not the Senate side I'm hearing these problems with. I'm hearing and personally experiencing these problems on the assembly side. And I just think that is a problem with the process. I just don't think that is a good, fair process. Not a transparent
Yeah.
one.
No, if you all wanted to center, the what's going to pass or not, and like the leadership may have, and the caucus, whether it's a Republican or a Democrat or whatever party, might say these are the things that need to happen, and you let the chairs know or not
Or
happen.
these are the
But
things
if you
that won't happen, right? Like we're not going to put
right,
dumbass, anti-transgender bills that are dangerous up. Okay, I get that. That's a line in the sand. We're not going to put things up that are anti our values, right? Especially with the Trump administration right now. I get that. Put the line in the sand, right?
yeah,
Cool.
but just getting it to the point where you're both not what the experience is, training your chairs to properly conduct themselves and the business, and also stifling them because you want to
Be in
have the
control.
whole strategy and in control. That's not a democratic republic, friends. That's not the way this works.
And it's
That's not
not
the
a
way a
transparent
chamber
process.
works.
No.
Yeah.
And having had been there for a long time, right? I look at the process I see on specifically again, the assembly side was what we're talking about. And I see that process, right? And we have some fabulous chairs this session. I think, yeah, look at Natha Anderson. Look at Venetia Constantine. Like, the be still my beating heart, right? Like Tracy Brown May, I think, is doing a great job. Like, there are some fantastic, especially women who are chairs of these committees. Unbelievable. But I also think across the board, some of this has gone to some of these people's heads. And that needs to be reined in a little bit too. Like, the people still get to participate in this process. Lobbyists still get to do their fucking jobs. And I have a real issue with the amount of maneuvering and control that exists now, trying to stifle certain things from even getting hearings. It's crazy.
You
And it
gotta
all comes
be,
back to a freaking dog bill, right? Like that is,
and
in
you
my
gotta be
opinion, Exhibit A of the. And again, I don't know why it died. I wasn't part of those negotiations. I'm not working on that bill. I'm just telling you what I'm seeing from the outside. And there was some sort of breakdown in communication, lack of communication, or maybe they really were magically working on amendments. I have literally never seen that happen in the 20 years that I've worked.
no, no. Every time there has either been an amendment needed, an amendment wrong, and needed to be fixed, there was
Look at his
always,
whole amendment on it. LCB will get to it by the time it gets to the
yeah,
floor.
they'll get to it. They'll get to it. They'll give some kind of notice of exemption. There are, you are the
100
legislature. You can
days.
figure things through. Yeah, that just doesn't
It doesn't
it.
all add up.
And if that is the case, let's say it was amendments, how bad are things in that chamber that just a couple amendments on a dog bill slow it down and kill it?
Why did nobody communicate that beforehand?
Right.
That's my thing. Is like, why did you let it blow up to the point then that people were so angry about it over the weekend because the bill died, and you let that narrative get so far out of control, and then you tried to backpedal on Monday? I'm just gonna call bullshit when I see it. That's all. That's all I'm saying.
Total bullshit. And I would always point out, especially when we work together, especially during session, this is why regular people hate politics and politicians.
If a Republican is carrying a good bill, then let that bill move. I don't care whose bill it is.
Yeah. It would
If
be
it's a good
like
And we've worked with Melissa Hardy before. She's
Yeah.
actually a decent leader who is there for the right reasons. Let
Yeah.
the bill be heard.
Yeah, it would be like if it was controlled by Republicans and a Democrat had a good bill, but
I
for
mean, just
whatever reason, yeah, it would be, it would be wrong. This is wrong too. If a Republican has a great bill, go forth and let them run that good bill. That's what regular people want to see, is different people working together for solutions, not kings and
as
queens
I as
controlling things.
the former Republican caucus director, because that's what I do now. I work with Republicans and Democrats and nonpartisans because that's how we get things done in the building. Anyways, I'm really irritated about this, which brings me to the lottery bill because I'm really irritated about it. Again, something personal, right? This is something you and I worked on in our past life. Good bill. Nevadans overwhelmingly support the lottery. You and I know this. Of course, gaming doesn't freaking want it. Of course, they don't want it. It's going to impact their gaming bottom line. But this nonsense that, oh, it's going to hurt events. You think my mom and dad don't drive to state line when the lottery goes wackadoo and buy those tickets? Come on.
That
Come
place
on.
is packed.
5 minutes from their house. They
Yeah.
drive across state line and go get lottery tickets. Spare me the bullshit here. Again, like, tell me you're in the pockets of gaming one more time without telling me you're in the pockets of gaming. So Culinary comes and is like, hey, BT Dubs, we'd really like to see the lottery bill come up again this session because, as you probably remember, C.H. Miller, he's a former assembly member, no longer in the assembly because he ran for the city council of Las Vegas. Unfortunately, whether you supported him or not, he didn't win that race. So he's no longer an elected official. So he can no longer run this bill. Well, there's nobody now there to champion this bill in the state legislature. So our friends at Culinary were going around trying to get the lottery bill heard again. On the assembly side, that's where it started. So that's where it has to start again this time. Just getting a total runaround about this bill. Who is going to bring it? How are they going to get the votes? They have to get the votes before they have a hearing. Again, nonsense. Just complete nonsense. And the bill died. The AJR that would have put it on the ballot for Nevadans to vote on it, it died. And again, I just think it's unacceptable. This had a hearing last session and it passed last session. And now the assembly is not willing to bring it back because of, I think, their beef with Culinary. And again, that is not the way to make good public policy. I'm sorry, it's just not.
For those that aren't watching, I'm stabbing my eyes out with my pen. That is beyond fucking stupid.
That's the whole point of why we did the measure the way that Culinary did the measure, and we, as our former
Exactly.
entity, supported it. Let the voters decide.
Give it to us. We'll tell y'all how to do it.
And they know what's going to happen because they know
They
people
know
over.
people, and that's why they don't want to pass it. And also, fuck gaming for that. Yeah, y'all might be the biggest dog in town. However, people want options. What's the fucking problem with options? What's the problem with options?
And also, that money was supposed to go to help our mental health services. At a time like this, when the Trump administration is literally decimating healthcare, decimating the things that we need for mental health, we already do a piss poor job in this state for mental health. Piss poor. You're going to fucking tell me that the voters can't decide on a lottery? We are not equipped to do that, and therefore you're not going to move a bill to do that. That passed last session? Give me a break.
That's such a fucking lame ass useless excuse. And I remember,
and if they ever want to repair their and this is just me talking as me, right? Again, looking from the outside, not having any information, no inside information, just knowing what I know about this issue from our work previously. If the Dems ever want to repair their relationship with Culinary,
not the way to
this
do it.
isn't the way to do it, friends. This ain't the way to do it.
And also, it's three things. One, like we talked about, it's already happening. And so it seems like you're just deciding, the legislators are just deciding to put on like a blindfold. I mean, like, it's not happening. We're not going to make it happen. Two, they know people are going to win because I remember being up there with you in our previous life when that hearing happened. And I remember going to another hearing and you were going to testify for us for this bill. And I remember I couldn't get into the room nor the overflow room because that's how, and this is Carson City, not just Vegas was packed too. Carson City was packed with people testifying in favor, and against it was basically gaming and some lackeys. And three, how dare people, especially Democrats, feel like they can shit on the backbone of Las Vegas, which is the workers of the culinary union. Like, seriously, as the daughter of a housekeeper who is retired, has troubles with her back because she spent 35 years cleaning fucking rooms for all those people that go to those goddamn resorts that gaming represents. And she has to clean up the literal shit for them, and now has back problems because of it. How dare y'all shit on people like her? That's a fucking shame for both gaming and the Democrats.
Again, like, leadership should have just let this go up. If you don't have the votes, you don't have the votes. That's a different story, right? If a bill goes up and gets a hearing or gets work sessioned, put it to the test. Let's see if the lobbyists have done their jobs, right? Like, that's a test for the lobbyists. That's the whole point. But this control of what comes up and what doesn't come up, like, come on, friends. That is not the way this is supposed to work.
It's not.
And from a process perspective, it's not a good look. And more than that, you put this up, it goes on the ballot. Yeah, gaming is going to spend a lot of money to try and fight it. Of course they are. Of course they are. They don't want to do this. But the rest of us, Nevadans, actual people who vote, overwhelmingly support this. And it's laughable. It's laughable when people say to me, well, poor people are going to be disproportionately hurt by this.
How?
We've all been raised with gaming around us, with slot machines in our airport. The minute you walk off a plane in Las Vegas or Reno, there is a slot machine. Lottery is no different than any of that. So you're telling me legalized gaming is fine, and that doesn't hurt anybody, and that doesn't hurt poor people. But somehow the lottery is different?
Lotteries exist literally everywhere else in the world. And y'all are saying that. Also, if you care so much about poor people, why don't you work on that too? Like we were talking about, if that's a problem, work on it. How about that?
Oh, Maria.
Oh, it sounds like deadline week was fun.
I just, I've been quiet. I've been minding my
Queen
business.
is making appearance.
Keeping my freaking head down.
What? The Queen heard culinary and she's like, what?
Now she's fired up. Like I said, I've been keeping my head down. I've been keeping my mouth shut. But, when I saw this nonsense last week, I'm just like, this is too much. This is too fucking much.
Yeah, let me tell the Queen, and she wants to know what's going on. The Queen is alive. She wants to know, los demócratas no quieren ponerlos porque están enojados con culinaria. See, she said that's bullshit. See, that's 3 Nevadans that agree. That's bullshit.
So, what's to come next? What's this next? I mean, the halfway point was about a week and a half ago. So, the halfway point was about a week and a half ago. But what comes next? So, what comes next is more deadlines. So, the first House passage is next week on April 22nd. Then everything that's not exempt switches houses. So, Assembly bills will go to the Senate. Senate bills will go to the Assembly. And then it has to go through deadlines there too. And then we have to be out by the 120-day. Plus, we have budget closings that are all starting next week. Big budget closings like the childcare system, the welfare system, things that we all really should be paying attention to because there's big problems in there. And then the Economic Forum comes on May 1st, which will tell us the forecast, or as I'm calling it, the doomsday forecast of what's coming for the state in terms of economic stability. And I'm also hearing the film tax credit, they're going to be making a big push now. Both bills have been heard on that. So I think that's going to be part of the final deal. So there's still a lot to come. A lot. There's still a lot of work.
I'm trying to math here. Like,
Math it.
tax credit different than the stadium, clearly, and we've talked about another episode. However, you're telling me that's kosher lottery, where money would go to good things here that might be cut, have been cut, don't exist sometimes. Bad.
The Nevada way.
The Nevada way seems like it's a Roman emperor just been like, on a whim.
Listen, when I am lacking words to describe the weirdness going on at the Nevada legislature, you know we got problems. And you know things aren't going quite as smoothly as everyone is saying they are.
Yeah. And as I mentioned, and as probably people saw last week, I was up there. And a lot of times, just simply walking around, like walking around, you can get a lot.
You do the vibe check.
As I was walking out to meet you, walking up to meet you, and I walked my dog and my mother around the beautiful grounds. And I did kind of like what I would always do when I would go up there and just like listen to like what the mood is, what people are saying, because lobbyists are always around, legislators are always around. There was a lot of, more often than before, complaining from the lobbyists, like to each other about like, this is bullshit, I'm trying to deal with this. And I was like, this feels like the end of session, like that there's problems with something and we only have a day to fix it. That's not a good sign. Great job, everyone.
Bang up job.
Keep it up.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, who knows what other fuckery gets thrown in at the end, right? We know the big stuff. We know that we think we know the big stuff, but who knows? I mean, the other thing too is there's also still, aside from like the fuckery stuff, there's also still really important bills that need to be introduced. Senator Canizaro's really important like family bill that she's bringing around childcare, around pre-K, around like all of these really, really important issues to Nevadans, like that still has to come out, right? You still got the governor's bills. Who knows what's happening with those? So there's some really big pieces of legislation that we still haven't even seen the language for. And, you know, like my client, like Moms Rising, we're still watching for that because that is critical to some of the services that Nevadans need. And I'm really thankful that Senator Canizaro is bringing that bill. So, like, there's still really important, really big pieces of legislation that we still need to get done. I mean, our mushroom bills, they're still moving about too. There's stuff getting sent to Ways and Means. I know that she's another one, Danielle Monroe Moreno. I mean, she's really doing her very best to keep the things on the rails at this point in terms of the money. I met with her the other day and just, you can really tell the stress there, right? Of trying to make sure the budget even balances at this point. Because you got a governor who can't math, you got a legislature who has to have a balanced budget, and then you have a federal government who is completely off their rocker. So, like, you have leaders trying their best to do what's right in these moments. But there's a lot of moving parts to this session that are very different than your typical legislative session. So it's going to be interesting.
And you know, I like that you mentioned the other parts of our government, including the federal, that we have to deal with. So I just find it fascinating that certain people in what sounds like leadership or important positions in the legislature are thinking this is a good time for fuckery. Like, this is a great time to be real fucking stupid.
Let's be clear. This isn't about the policy. This is about their political futures. Who's running for what? Who wants to run for governor? Which we can talk about in a minute. Who wants to run for county commission? Who wants to run for state senate? Who wants to run for their seats in the assembly? Who wants to run for dog catcher? Like, they're all now starting, and that partially term limits are to blame for this, right? But because so many of these legislators are coming up on their term limits now, you're going to start seeing people jockeying for different positions. You're going to start seeing people do things and act a certain way and try to be standout leaders who wouldn't normally do those things. And so I think that's also contributing to some of this chaos is like people want to run for other offices. I've never thought
Wonderful.
term limits are good. Just saying
No,
that. Right here,
no.
right now.
Especially in a state in Nevada where we only meet every 2 years.
We don't have a
And
strong bench.
yeah, no, it's just always problems with the budget year after year, or biennium after biennium.
And you lose all that institutional knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
You train people up to do these really, really hard jobs, especially like ways and means and finance, right? And now with term limits, then they're gone. And, they could be argued that you bring new leaders up behind you, but a lot of times, because of exactly what you said, because of the way our legislature meets, it's really hard to bring those people up behind you.
Yeah, no.
And then the institutional knowledge lives with the lobbyists, which is not always a good thing.
No. Wow, it sounds like Nevada should put its big person pants on and act like a state.
More deadlines to come. More shenanigans to come at the NV Ledge. Whee!
Great.
All right, let's go to the next section.
Yeah, so for this next section, we would usually do look a lowdown, what the fuck is going on. However, I was thinking a lot in the 8 hours it takes to drive here, and then after, because I was sensing there's times of transition during deadlines, and you, Annette Magnus, have gone through transition, and I myself have gone through transition, but this time is an important time because you recently celebrated your new work anniversary. So instead of doing our usual section, I want to interview you about that and that transition in your life.
Okay.
Because I think, and we talk a lot about this now, but also when we worked up there, it is hard to do this job. It is hard to do the job we did before, but it is incredibly harder to do it as a woman. And
Right shirt today.
so, yeah, so same brain. So I want to ask you a few things. And yes, Annette has no idea what I'm going to ask you. Even
It literally says on the
surprise
script,
section.
surprise section. I don't know anything that's coming. I didn't know about this until 30 minutes ago.
So I want to ask you, so your new, first tell us about your new business, and then that way people know that it's been a year and you have your own thing now.
Yeah. So I started my business AM Solutions last February 2024. So I left our old organization in June of 2023. I quit in February, gave them 6 months notice, left in June, took 9 months off. Most people have babies in 9 months. I went and traveled the world with my husband, which was lovely, and took time off and figured out how to be a human being again. And it was great. And then I gave myself till the new year to kind of figure out, do I want to go back into the nonprofit space or do I want to start my own business? Every time I looked at a job description for the nonprofit space, I felt like I was going to throw up. And I was like, yeah, I can't go back into that because it's toxic as hell. So I decided I wanted to start my own business where I got to pick my own clients and pick the folks that I get to work for and work with, and took the leap. Officially filed my tax stuff on February 5th, 2024, which was almost a year to the day when I quit our old job, which is really weird still to this point. And then I took a couple months after I had done the paperwork and registered with the county and all that good stuff and built up my client base. My first client was the Nevada Coalition for Psychedelic Medicine, which is something that is very near and dear to my heart and one of my favorite organizations. They've been on the show. And so that was where I started. And then I ended up getting Moms Rising. I ended up working on several candidate campaigns, doing a bunch of other stuff. And then in April, we had our first big event for NCPM. And so I was like, okay, well, it's time to launch this little business into the world. I got to officially, you guys all knew I was doing it, but officially, I had to put it out into the world. And so the anniversary of that was this week. And I've been doing it officially for a year. And it's really cool. I love it. I have several clients this session. I also do stuff outside of session. I don't just have some session clients. And I'm really proud of my little business that I've created. And I'm really proud that I'm like doing it on my own and I'm my own boss. And AM Solutions is a public affairs political consulting firm. I do comms, I do lobbying, I do organizing, do a little bit of everything like I've always done. And I really love it. It's great.
Well, congrats. Another round of applause to celebrate a year. So, it's not easy for anyone to go through a transition, but I personally know about yours and it was not easy. Mine wasn't easy either, but yours is the one we're celebrating. So tell us, what part of you survived in the last year or so that you didn't know could or you didn't think would?
Well, it was really 2 years, right? Because it really kind of the chaos started in 2023. And that was really when last session was fucking horrible. And just some of the nonsense that I went through as I decided to transition out was just unacceptable. We'll leave it at that. And it's funny, I was actually talking with our therapist this morning about it. And I didn't know if I would be up here again, but I was so passionate about coming back to the legislature. The legislature, I've always said, it's my jam, it's my happy place. I don't know why. Every session I get to about this point, I'm like, am I psychotic? And the answer is yes. But I love this and I love the process and I love lobbying on issues and I love advocating for things that I believe in. And I just felt strongly that I had to prove it to myself that I'm really, really good at this. And despite what other people might think, I know what I'm doing here. And so I made it a point to start my business last year to get ahead of session for this year so I could make sure I could get clients for this year. And I was really scared coming up here because I'd spent kind of a year building my business quietly, kind of just getting things in order, making sure things were working. But like, once you come up here, you're kind of fully exposed. You're fully exposed to the people who like you, who don't like you. People don't like me. And I think it kind of reminded me of like my fighting spirit. Like, I don't really care anymore if people don't like me. They are so mad that I'm back up here. And every time I see them get irritated about it, it just like gives me more strength and more happiness because I'm like, I proved everyone wrong. And there was a moment where I really didn't know if I was going to get back into politics. I didn't know if I wanted to continue doing this. And I felt so strongly about getting back to session that I would like dream about it. Like literally as I was sleeping, like in my dreams, I would dream about like coming back up here, being back in Carson City, being back at the legislature. And I just don't think people realize like how much I really love this unless you really, really know me. And so getting back up here, when I drove into town the first day, I cried a little bit because I was really proud of myself because I set a goal last year when I started my business and like I accomplished that goal. My whole goal was to get back up here, prove the haters wrong, and be able to shine during session and work for clients that I really believed in. And I've done that now. So I'm really proud of myself.
Hell yeah. And in the very beginning, you built something from scratch here, but you also built our former organization from scratch, technically, because it was almost nothing. So, puts a lot of context into how transitioning just simply out of your previous life was tough. And then starting from scratch something that is your own is tough. Was there a moment in this new you where you thought, I'm not going to make it? And how did you surpass that? If you
You know,
experienced that.
it's funny, I didn't experience that this time because I went through at the very beginning of when I took over our old job. The organization was a hot mess when I took it over in 2013. And they didn't have fundraising plans. They didn't have a lot of the infrastructure that you and me and the team built up. They didn't have a lot of anything. The organization you see today is a very different organization than the one that I inherited in 2013. And there were a lot of blood, sweat, tears, organs that were donated to that movement and to that organization to get it to where it is today. And despite everything that happened, I'm still very proud of our role in that. When I transitioned out, though, like I said, I didn't know if I even wanted to be in politics anymore. Just the toxicity, the nonsense. Like, it's not why I got into politics. I got into politics to make change. And I felt like I had just, like, my gusto was gone. I was just like, I don't really care anymore. But slowly, after taking some time off and really, really examining what I wanted, which I hadn't been able to do in a long time, I determined, okay, I think I got the skills to do this. And look, it's scary as hell starting your own business. Like, I was scared out of my fucking mind doing it, because if you fail, then you fail, right? Like, you don't get a paycheck, you don't get a paycheck, right? It's literally not on anybody else. I have nobody to fall back on at this. Of course, Nick supports me and all this, but like, I had to make money and I had like a 6-month plan to get that done. And I did it. And so I think because of the lessons I learned at the old organization about being scared and taking risks and having a good plan, I was able to implement some of that stuff with a business, because a nonprofit's really no different than a business. And so it was challenging and it was scary for very different reasons than the organization we ran, but it was good. I was glad. I was glad to do it. And I think any small business owner, because that's what I am now, a small business owner, any small business owner will tell you it's a risk starting a business. It was a risk renting a house and coming to Carson City. But if you're scrappy enough and you believe in the work you do, you'll figure out a way to do it.
Yeah. Now you're a mom and pop lobbyist. What version of you had to die or be left behind so that this new you or updated you could rise and be that mom and pop lobbyist you are?
I think we both know the part of me that had to die. I don't get to scream about things like I used to. I have to be a much more tame version of myself. I have to watch my mouth more. I mean, there's times where I will still pop off. I mean, that's never going to completely die. But, I was talking to Sibelius about this last week. He was in the building. And he's like, I miss you going up to the table and telling them that their bills are trash. I miss going to the table and telling them that their bills are trash too, Steve. And that's the part of me that's, I don't have, and in some ways I'm glad, right? 10 years of being that personality is a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But I've had lobbyists, this has been one of the most interesting things. I've had lobbyists come up to me and be like, you're so much more calm. You're so much more like nice. And I'm like, right. What you never understood was I've always been that way. I've always been kind and nice, and as long as you don't piss me off, again, that hasn't changed. But I've always been that person. I've always been patient, and I've always wanted to teach people about the process. But like, my whole personality in the job we had to do was kind of to be that tip of the spear, right? To be the ones yelling, to be the ones creating noise, to be the ones holding people accountable all the time. I don't have to do that anymore. I will hold people accountable on the bills and on the issues that I work on, but that looks very, very different than what it looked like before. I mean, it's also part of the reason why we started this show. Is like both of us needed an outlet, basically just talk about what we're pissed about, because in our normal day jobs, we don't get to do that as much anymore. Because that was kind of the whole gig we had before. So that had to die. It's better. I reached 40. I probably, for my blood pressure, should stop screaming so much.
Can't help it. You're Italian.
Yeah. Chula's screaming.
Chula's yelling for you. Second to last question. When you look at what you've built and how you've transitioned, what part of it feels most like you?
I mean, I see like little glimmers of all the stuff that I've learned in my past, and I get to implement that now. Yesterday, I was working on a bill tracker with one of the interns in the building and teaching them how to do a bill tracker. And I'm like, that hasn't changed, right? Like, the teaching of people has not changed. contrary to popular belief, I actually do teach people about the legislature and the process and mentor people.
Mm-hmm.
And so the other stuff that like is very me, like even the logo, down to the logo, like I put a lot of time
Mm-hmm.
and energy into that
Sure
because
did.
I wanted it to be me and I wanted it to represent a lot of different things. And like, when you're at an organization, it's not about you. It's about the organization, it's about the issues, it's about a bigger goal. It's bigger than all of us. Now with my company, it is about me. I get to make it about me. I am marketing myself to clients to hire me to do a skill set, to provide comms, to provide social media, to provide lobbying, to provide fundraising, to provide organizing, like all the different things that I do. And so I got to like actually like make it more me and like I'm really proud of it.
Yeah, you really did spend time on that. On that.
Yeah, and I like I had fun with it. Like I
Yeah.
actually like had a good time. It was fun to do. I didn't want to bring along any of like the negativity from before. Like I really wanted it to be something I enjoyed and something I was happy about when I go to work every day.
Yeah. And final question, what's the most meaningful no you said in your entire transition?
Well, I've already gotten rid of some clients because I was like, our values don't align. And it's funny because it's like, it's also, I get to decide, remember when we would have like funders and stuff and we would be like, well,
Mm-hmm.
we got to raise money because we got to pay everybody and we got to make sure that our lights stay on. And like, we would really have to like suck it up sometimes with some of those funders. I mean, there are a few that come to mind immediately.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to do that anymore. There was a client I had, and this client was driving me crazy. And it was way too much work for what I was being paid. And I was just like, you know what? I have to do this. If it's making me this crazy and it's stressing me out, I don't have to do it. I can say no. I can quit. And I did. And it was the best decision I've ever made. And I was like, okay. And I rejected the client. Client wanted me to stay on. And I was like, you know what? This just isn't the right fit for me. And I'm really glad I got to do that. Like, I've had a lot of amazing clients, and all the ones I have now are awesome. But it was interesting being able to be like, no, I don't have to do shit I don't want to do anymore. I love it. It's kind of awesome.
Amazing. Amazing. Getting to say no. Can't always do that in a nonprofit.
Imagine that. A
Yeah,
woman standing
a
up for
woman.
herself and saying no.
Some people would call that mean, a bitch. See you next Tuesday. Well, those
They
are the
probably
questions I had.
I will just say, and this is something I talked about with Meg, our therapist, this morning, and I was laughing about it a little bit. In the building, I was really nervous about coming back up here because, there are some people who really don't like me. And I don't care. And I don't think they realize how much I don't care that they don't like me. And there was a situation the other day. I don't know if I told you about that. I'm coming out of a gift shop. One of them almost walked into me, like physically walked into me. And they were forced to say hello to me. And I literally just pretended like they didn't exist. And I just walked away. Like I just kept on walking. And I was like, you know what? I don't have to engage with you. You have been horrible to me. You have said horrible things about me. You continue to do horrible shit to me. I don't have to engage with you. And I'm not going to. And I'm not going to engage with any of them. And it's been, I think of all of that journey, of the 2-year journey that I've been on with you. I think that has been the most empowering part of this is like, not only did I prove them wrong, I'm not going to give them the satisfaction of reacting to them because I just don't care what they think anymore. They don't impact my life. And that's the best part. There's
Yeah.
zero impact.
Yeah. Well, congrats on getting to that part and an official
Congrats
year. Yeah.
your
Yeah,
little
yeah.
podcast and all the good things that are coming. And yeah, that's great. Very proud
Yeah.
of us.
Hell yeah. Very, very, very proud. And uh
And then for
something to
those
be
who want to
decided.
learn more, AM Solutions, you can follow me on social media. I don't do a great job with my own social media. I do a bang up job with other people's social media. But you can follow me on my personal page. You can follow me on AM Solutions. I have a website, amsolutions.com. think it's amsolutionsnv.com because there's a printing company somewhere else with the same name. So amsolutionsnv for Nevada. But yeah, follow me. Lots of cool stuff going on. If you need a lobbyist, if you need somebody to do comms or fundraising, I'm your gal.
Yeah, and especially if you need her to yell, because
I'm really good at that. Bang
yeah.
up, John.
Well, that was our surprise section. You're free of
What's the
surprises now.
anniversary? Woo! Okay. I wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I thought you were going to embarrass me.
Well, now I know what to do the next.
You know how much I love surprises.
Hell yeah, I do.
Hey, well, I think we have a few things to talk about before we go in terms of hot takes and headaches. We can include that with our WTF moments. We can really wrap up the show with all of the nonsense going on in the world. Go ahead, you first.
Which is a lot. So, one of the hot take and a headache. A hot take is Nayib Bukele is a bitch. And Trump is an asshole. And criminals, both of them. And I really got to experience that driving from Carson City, because you've done the drive to and fro. It is long. You need entertainment because the outside is not going to be entertaining. So I put on a podcast for my mother and I in Spanish. It's also in English. It's called Humo, Murder and Silence in El Salvador. And this was before the last few months.
Prisons before all the human rights violations.
No, it is before the Trump administration, but Bukele is in power. And it's from a journalist who is from El Salvador, has worked as a journalist in El Salvador, and he starts a story on like a former cop who helped a bunch of gangs have this like house where they would put all the bodies in the backyard of like all the people that they killed. Like El Salvador, whether it's gangs or now the president, has always had a history of missing people, which is most likely murdered people or now imprisoned people forever. And so he was working on a case and it led him to that. And then it just goes over years and years and years of from that moment to Bukele is in office. Like he literally runs through some of the campaign speeches he did and now him being in office, and he goes through how things changed for the worse for both journalists, regular people, and how maybe Bukele isn't so anti-violence as we think he is, how maybe there's certain things he concocted to make El Salvador slightly more dangerous. Like there was a very specific, so a lot of people may not know how things happen in El Salvador, but he had always wanted to be where he's at now, to where there is no basically judicial process for people in El Salvador.
Talk about his background too, because it matters. What his background?
So his background is fascinating. So yes, he does not have a very Latino sounding name. He's Palestinian. His family is on both ends is Palestinian. They converted to like Christianity, one of those churches that is
I think he's friends with Netanyahu.
Yeah, and he's Biffles. You would expect him because Palestinian to be like, fuck you, dude, but no, because he's a self-interested prick. And he's also, I never looked this up, but I work in my day job with people who are from El Salvador and Central America. And I remember a conversation with someone from El Salvador who said he is the biggest liar on the planet because he acts like he's anti-drug, anti-gang, anti-all this thing, when he is a rich boy because his dad has a business and he wanted to get be part of the business and started a nightclub in San Salvador where gangs were trafficking drugs. And everybody knew, and he knew. And so literally that is who he is. He is a greedy, self-interested motherfucker. And the way we got to this point in El Salvador that the podcast walks you through, and it's really scary, is he had always wanted to get to the point where we are now, where there's no judicial anything for anyone, judicial process. But there were like 2 moments where he tried. The first one didn't work. And then in the second one, there was all of a sudden like a heavy increase in violence, in murders all across San Salvador, everywhere, and the rest of the country. And that's when he said and told Congress and forced Congress basically to say, we're suspending habeas corpus, we're suspending judicial process, I'm going to start locking people up. Because I can't believe so many people were murdered all across the country, all over everywhere. Well, spoiler alert, I know you always look up at the spoilers. So if people don't want the spoiler from this podcast, fast forward a few minutes. But the spoiler is, wow, people like whistleblowers within the government were saying what really happened is Bukele and his government were negotiating to give more power to the gangs, because gangs are very powerful. And by the way, those gangs weren't creating in El Salvador. They are coming here. Those gangs, and this podcast walks through it, were created here, in the prison system here. And then when we deported people in the 80s to El Salvador, who were already now in MS-13, that's how those got to El Salvador. They weren't created over there. They were created over here. It's an American problem that went to El Salvador. So Bukele always forgets that. But so this podcast basically shows how he probably concocted this, but the result of this violence in that one day that led to the suspension of judicial process was that the Bukele government all of a sudden didn't want to negotiate with the gangs anymore. And the gangs were like, oh, well, fuck you then, and had a day. Literally, Bukele caused all of this. He's a liar. He is not this holy, religious, saintly person.
I think I told you this. Some former friends of mine, El Salvadorian, and one of them was telling me how great the new president was and how he was going to change things and how the gang problem was really being cleaned up and they have these like amazing prisons there that they're all getting put into. And I remember sitting there talking to these folks, and Nick was with me, and I was like, and I don't know much about El Salvador, but I know a lot about dictatorships and I know a lot about history. And I was like, anytime somebody's talking about super prisons that resemble certain camps or, making deals with Benjamin Netanyahu or the Chinese government rebuilding your port, probably not something you should think is a good thing. Maybe do your research a little bit. Maybe do some homework on this. No. I promise you, Annette, he is going to be a great leader. You should do some research on this. Like, again, don't know a lot about the El Salvadorian government at that point. Sounds a little too good to be true.
Doesn't pass the smell.
And it also smacks of like human rights violations, right? So that's we get Donald Trump again. And I see all of this starting to bubble up with Bukele and Trump and their love affair with each other. And then you're in the Oval Office. Fast forward all the way through. You're in the Oval Office this fucking week. And there's a hot mic moment where Donald Trump says, we're going to start deporting the homegrown ones there.
Got to build 5 more of those prisons.
American people, listen, it is unconstitutional for the president or any government entity in the United States of America to send anyone, regardless of if they've committed a crime or not, to another country. We, regardless of whether or not you've committed a crime, are U.S. citizens. It is illegal to send us to another country. And let me remind you of what the motherfucking Nazis did. Remember Poland? Remember Auschwitz? Remember all that during the Holocaust? Genocide? That's the shit the Nazis did. They sent people to other countries to be in prison camps. And human rights were violated and people were murdered on a mass scale. So let me just remind you of history, Americans. This is not a good thing. Donald Trump deporting U.S. citizens to El Salvador to be in cahoots with his buddy Bukele, who is committing human rights atrocities against El Salvadorians as well, and other people. That is not a legal thing. And we are entering, my friends, into what we knew was coming. If you follow history, you knew this was coming. A constitutional crisis. Because a person was illegally deported to El Salvador, and the courts have all said he was illegally deported, and that the Trump administration is not obeying court orders now. And now we're here. Because what is Donald Trump going to do? Is he going to obey the courts? Probably not. Because he doesn't believe in the Constitution and the fucking law.
No, he didn't even pay his taxes. How's he going to obey the Supreme fucking Court?
It doesn't care if he's convicted of 34 felonies. We elected a fucking felon. What did you think was going to happen? We are entering a constitutional crisis. If you don't fucking believe me, go read a history book. Read about World War II. Read about what Hitler and the Nazis did. And then come talk to me.
And if you think all those things were good, well, you're a piece of shit.
My blood pressure's going back up because now I'm yelling again because I'm irritated.
That's why we started this podcast, so we can do this. And also, I got into a post of that. I got into the comment section of one of the posts from that wonderful visit. And one of them's some, what does Nick call it, mouth breather, said, well, someone said that he's an MS-13. And then in another, like a New York Times podcast from today, they're saying
administration. Misinformation at its finest.
So, and they were saying, that's part of their argument is that they have a witness saying that he's a gang member. This is what I love about this podcast. This podcast walks through how now in Bukele's Salvador, this journalist, who is in a undisclosed location now living, not in El Salvador,
afraid for their lives.
After he did all these stories, and all of this, unmasking of Bukele, all of a sudden, the police said, he's a gang member. And he has a brother who's a gang member. And the guy was like, I don't have a brother. I don't actually have a brother.
Fucking imbeciles will say anything, as they did to the mouth breathers of the American people to get elected. Do you not think they won't lie to you about deporting somebody illegally? They don't give a shit. Deportations. They don't care about human rights. They don't care about human rights violations. They are wannabe Nazis. And you know what? I hope one day they come and round us up for yelling, because I'm not going to stop yelling about this shit.
We'll yell in the prison.
Sounding the fucking alarms right now. Every American citizen should be yelling from the fucking rooftops right now about what is going on. Because if you don't know what comes next, go read a history book, because we are on a slippery slope to hell. Nobody's exaggerating at this point. Nobody's being, what did he call us last week about the economic crisis? I don't even know. Nobody's exaggerating. We are in a very dangerous position for human rights. And whether you're a citizen, a non-citizen, there are rights that human beings have, especially in this country. And Donald Trump is about to violate them all. So get ready, folks. What are you willing to do to fight for this?
Yep. Ugh. And you know what it all comes down to, mouth breathers that still support Trump? It's not about protecting Americans. It's not about deporting people who didn't follow the law and come here legally. It's about business. He is giving money to Bukele. Bukele is getting $20,000 a head.
They're like this.
Stealing money.
Donald Trump, Bukele, and every other dictator in this world are shaking hands right now. This is they're each other's wet dreams. Wannabe dictators.
Yep.
We're just not.
Yeah. And it's scary times. So that was my entire hot take on headache.
I mean, yeah, that was my what the fuck moment. But I have a hot take too.
Oh.
Separate from the constitutional crisis that we should all be screaming from the rooftops about. Much less serious, but all equally as irritating. You ready for this? Let me read you this email. Available now. Flexible payment plans. Dear Annette, get ready to experience the thrill of F1 Formula One Heineken Las Vegas Grand Prix 2025, taking place November 20th through the 22nd, with more ticket options and get flexible payment plans. This year's event is more accessible than ever.
Is it accessible to locals? Is that what they mean?
If you need a fucking payment plan to go to an event in my own backyard
to see a car for like 2
literally in
seconds.
Las Vegas, it is more expensive for me to go to the F1 race than it would for me to fly to Monza in Italy and attend the fucking race there. If you need a payment plan to go to a race in your own backyard, F1 got some problems that you should probably consider lowering the price for.
Yeah, that's a whole lot of bullshit. And it sounds like a whole lot of, we spent a lot of money on this, so we're going to charge you a lot of money for it.
The dumbest. I saw that and I was like, oh, I'm saving this. I'm saving this for my hot take this week because this is the dumbest thing I've seen in a long time. And we live in a land of dumb things right now. We live in a whole lot of dumb shit right now. But for a local issue, the fact that people need payment plans, number one, the economy's crashing, but number two, locals have to have a payment plan to go to a race in their own backyard.
I have a payment plan for eggs, friends.
And I'd rather go to Italy. I'll just fucking stay there. Self-deport time. Go see the F1 race.
Be in Italy. That's much better.
Why would I go to a race that means nothing at that point? Because by this time, the championship's usually already decided. It was decided in Vegas last year. We knew who was going to fucking win. So by the time they get to Vegas, it's already, the championship's already pretty much done. Why would I go to a race in my own backyard? So when I need a payment plan to do it.
Talk about not knowing what the fuck is going on around you with regular people.
Talk about not reading the room. Mm-hmm. Your race isn't being attended in Las Vegas because it's too expensive, F1, and you don't cater to locals. That's my hot take for the week.
Yeah.
And you're wasting Clark County's time and resources to put on a race that locals can't even afford to attend and need a payment plan to go to. Great job, F1. The Nevada way. Great job.
That is great strategery right there.
Yeah. What do we call it? 4D chess?
4D chess. Galaxy brain playing 4D chess.
I couldn't believe it when I just saw that email. And that came in today. I was like, oh, okay. All right. Well, I'll be saving this.
You need a payment plan for like...
Wait. Okay, you start right now. I just scrolled down to see what the payment plan is. General admission. Not even like good seats. General admission. Okay? You see the car for like this much time. Starting at $145 a month. Meaning until frickin' November, you have to pay $145 a month per ticket. That's just general admission. That's just getting you in the gate. Hospitality, starting at $500. Starting at $500 per month, Maria. You want a seat in the grandstands? It's $175 per month per ticket.
So total, it's like minimum $600, $700.
And that's down from what it was when they first started. Those tickets were like $1,200 when they first started. That's why Nick and I didn't go, and we were like, fuck you, we're going to Disneyland instead.
It's a grand, stupid idea.
TV for free. And see the whole race.
Yeah, you actually get to see the cars the whole time.
I could go drive the racetrack right now if I wanted to.
Is there like a parade between the cars that you get to see so you can be entertained other than those 10 seconds?
I mean, apparently. I don't know, because I won't go because I think it's too expensive. Again, I could go to Monza. I'm going to save my money. I'm going to leave this country and go to Italy and watch in the homeland.
Yeah. Wow, that's really fucking stupid.
Anyways, great time. Good job, Nevada. Bang up job this week. Really making me proud.
That's so good. Yep.
Hey, but shout out to Aaron Ford for continuing his fight against Donald Trump, and I really mean that. Ford's the real champion. Because he's one of the only ones in this country. And, hey, shout out to your congressman, Congressman Stephen Horsford, for going after that asshole this week about the tariffs. Shout out to Stephen Horsford, too. Give him a little, because that was a really important exchange between him and the tariff guy who had no idea what Donald Trump was doing.
And he was like, how do you have no idea, and why did we find out in a tweet? He actually asked, what the fuck is going on?
Literally said, WTF is going on. I was like, oh, look, a segment. Good job, Stephen.
And you know who's also a notable mention? the Attorney General's Chief of Staff, Teresa Benitez Thompson. It's literally like the people of color just like,
Yeah.
you don't scare us, fuck you.
Listen, I'm glad to see two Black men from the state of Nevada being the ones who are standing up to the Trump administration. I'm glad. I'm glad to see it. More of that, please, from everyone.
More. For everyone, especially in the legislature, look at them and do a copy paste.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah. So we heard from Mark Amodei yesterday at the legislature, full of excuses. His speech was approximately 10 minutes long. Really riveting
He
stuff.
can't punch at all.
At this point, I didn't want to hear from him. There were protesters outside. I was proud of that. But he did go across the street to the bank and want a pecan punch. And I was just like, you're not a serious person. But next week is the real queen. You know who next week's
From Dina Titus?
The queen. She comes back to Carson City next week. Can't wait.
Oh, man.
You know how I feel about that.
That one I will watch. Hell yeah. I will watch.
Can't wait. Next week, 23rd. Tune in, everybody.
Heck yeah.
All right. Well, it's been another riveting show. Thank you. Thanks for my surprise section. I appreciate you. Put links in the chat, everyone. Take a look at the links. So yeah, final bell. Maria, take it away.
My final thing you should take from this is, what is happening with, from tariffs to Kilmar, is important, and you should pay attention. And I think we said it a couple episodes ago, start really thinking about, securing your finances, not spending so much money on things. Our country is not going in the right direction, so just do a little assessment of your life and be like, how do I protect myself? Because it's not going so.
I'm over it, YOLO. Let's see. What's my mic drop moment of the week? Shout out to the Filipino community in Southern Nevada, who is getting Filipino Town officially recognized by the Clark County Commission. Good job! Love to see that representation. Because in Nevada, we actually believe in diversity, and diversity making our communities better. So great job, Filipino community. We're proud of you.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Filipino Town.
Love it.
Filipino.
I can't wait to go.
Low-key, not just Asian stores, but specifically Filipino stores are some of the best fish stores. That's where my mom goes. She goes to Filipino stores to get her fish.
Okay. You know my love of Asian food, the Asian culture. I think anytime we can recognize communities of color and diversity in our community, especially in Vegas, the better. So shout out to the Filipino community for all your hard work getting that recognized by the county commission. Super exciting.
Yeah, Pinoy pride.
That's right. So that's all the time we have today for 1 Minute Recess. So glad you could tune in for all of our hot takes, headaches, conversations about the NB Ledge, conversations about what it's like to be a female leader in this business. Hope you take a look at all of our links in the chat. Don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review. That helps us get more people to the podcast and keeps us going to keep our shows going. So tune in every week. Make sure you like and subscribe. Make sure you share this with your friends and family so that we get more people engaging on the podcast. Leave comments, ask questions. We want to hear from you.
Hell yeah. And we'll be back next week with more political drama, chaos, and what the fuck moments.
And next week we have April Corbin joining us from the Nevada Current. So tune in. She's going to come with her hot takes for the NB Ledge and for politics in general. She's got a new NB Ledge tracker you're going to want to see. So join us next week for our conversation with April Corbin from the Nevada Current. And we'll see you next week, everyone. Be safe.
Bye, y'all.
Hold Donald Trump accountable. Bye.